Welcome to Afro Political. Lots is happening in the world. Hurricanes, 2 in a row in less than a week. And President Trump has been happening. This is Afro Political. All right, welcome everyone to Afro Political, a show where we help you have decent and respectful conversations. We talk about the continent, talk about issues that are important to the continent and people in the continent. And we talk about the world as well. President Trump, just this week, last week I think, he had trips to make to Houston, Texas. And he had, these huge rallies, American presidents do this, when there's something happening, they have to go there and show, some sort of connection, and see if they can help the governments there, with federal help. What do they need? Do they need more money? Do they need to, rebuilding, something that the federal government can help a struggling community. When Trump was in Houston, and one of the big things that he said, this is a very big crowd. Thank you all for coming. You all look great. It's important. Let's start from where we should. The dreamers, the children who get into America, below the age of 16, they've usually had this bipartisan view that they should be allowed to go to school. They should be allowed to be integrated into the American life and American community, and they, in fact, become citizens. President Trump just doesn't think that's a good idea. He says, well, that policy is flawed. Congress should go and pass a substantive law. And he knows very well that Congress has tried for many years to try and get this through, and it's been impossible. What's cutting?
He's appealing to his base.
What does his base want?
His base wants Mexicans out. They have this idea that same thing happens in the UK, where they want the Polish out, they want to limit immigration because there's a flawed logic around where jobs are going. Mm-hmm. That flawed logic has been preyed on by politicians to say that the reason you don't have a job is because someone else has that job.
Right.
Yeah. And so a certain base, now his base, that's something they believe. And he's playing on that because there's nothing else he can report on in terms of his achievements.
But Trump is a very consummate politician, a different kind of politician, which I think...
Consummate is not the right word.
Different kind of politician. I corrected myself.
You're
being Trump-like now. Anyway, Trump is a very sort of different kind of... not even a politician. He's just a different kind of...
human being.
Altogether. I didn't say that. He might need a visa to go to the US. I might need a visa.
Probably won't.
He's giving the American institutions all sorts of problems, a different kind of problems. The American institutions sort of assumed and had this general belief that you going to have someone at the White House who has some certain standards, is going to follow certain rules. Trump doesn't do any of that. All right, he has no rules, or he makes the rules as he goes. He's sort of coming to this presidency with a sort of sort of a rebellious kind of feeling with it, and that is putting so much strain, I think, especially on the Congress. And I think the members of Republican Party, they don't know when, or I think from my view, I don't think they know when to support him or when not. At the moment, because Trump is just a newly elected president, it's politically correct to support him all the time because he occupies a very big seat. But a decision like this, that has always received bipartisan support, a decision that logically every research, everyone says that these young children, young people who come, under the age of 16 are not even contributory to the overall, immigration burden of the US. How do this, I guess what I'm struggling with is how do these level-headed politicians still buy into this and still perpetuate and support the same?
I'm not sure they'll buy into it. Number one, the impact on the Republican Party is going to be ridiculous. Yeah? Because the Latino vote is one of the most important votes in the US, and it's growing. Yeah? They are the fastest growing demographic in the US at the moment. Yeah? I was reading about a situation where they passed a similar law through the governor there a few decades back.
Right.
And what that led to was a total, complete movement from the Republican Party to the Democrats, which means the Republican Party was annihilated completely in California. Yeah, and this was not something that it took that passing of that law to completely shift California and to be, especially the Latino vote, to be completely Democrat. And what you'll have if the Republican-dominated Congress does anything to this effect is probably it's going to lock out the Republican Party from that community over in the few decades to come.
And obviously, President Obama had to come back, and give his comments after, Trump, suggested that, he will do away with DACA. But there's a sense that Obama years, the 8 years, and I think this should be something that we can talk about, is that the Obama 8 years sort of were very influential on certain things, but it sort of appears that when you have someone like Trump who's so keen into undoing everything of the presidency, then it appears that the Obama years weren't really placed on a solid rock, as it were. So we are in this very dicey scenario and situation whereby Obama, has to defend, Obamacare. He has to come back and defend every policy that, he sort of started. But most importantly, he has to sort of be the opposite of Trump, so that Trump doesn't have an equal opposite in the Democrat Party right now.
Yeah. No, you can't even talk about the Democrats at the moment as a party, as an institution, because I think there's quite a bit they need to sort out. But when you look at, I think legislation-wise, what you have is Obamacare is a strong legislation. Yeah, it went through so much. Yeah, before it was passed, and which is why it's so difficult to undo it. Yeah, because you need to be equally prepared.
It was very sophisticated.
It was a sophisticated document.
Right.
Yeah, which is why subsequent governments, previous governments had not been able to hack it.
Yeah.
Hillary Clinton tried when she was first lady in the Clinton era.
Yeah.
Before that, the only person who passed Medicare was Lyndon Johnson. Before that, the only person who passed some sort of health care was FDR.
Yeah.
Before that, there was no one.
Yeah.
Yeah?
It's one of those impossible
exactly
political assignments.
It is.
Rwanda had an election just before our election, ended without an incident or accident. Perfect elections. No story there. I think the swearing in was done as well.
It was done.
Right, yeah. So that is very different. Ours has to wait for a period where someone is going to contest. Then if someone contests, then, it goes where it goes, postpone it. But there, I think they're still in what our old constitution, which is after someone has won, then it's just deciding on a day, on when to swear them in. But there's just one problem with that whole story. One of the opposition leaders, a lady who did not even manage to register in the polls, was arrested, disappeared. Her family was quite, I think, maybe for 3 or 4 days, they didn't know where she was. And then she appeared, so she was arrested without charges, but that's where it is, So the biggest question that people are wondering is the political scenario in Rwanda, assuming this is the last 7 years, I think, for Kagame. I think he said it. He said it before. That was his last and this is last. So assuming this is his last, there's something missing below Paul Kagame.
Yeah.
There's a huge vacuum of political, I would say, students or someone to fill in. And the rest of this lady just emphasizes this point that there's something political is missing in Rwanda, and we can place what it is until Kagame decides what happens next to him. That's when we can start defining what's happening in Rwanda.
Francis Fukuyama writes that there's a difference between the rule of law and rule by law.
Yeah.
The rule of law means even the leaders in a country,
Yes.
are ruled by the laws of the land.
Right.
They have to abide by the law of the land, which is why the president here today, when the Supreme Court said that the elections have been nullified, he had to abide by that, because as a country we are guided by the rule of law.
Right.
Now, rule by law, on the other hand, it means everybody else has to abide by the laws of the land except the elite, except the president.
Yeah, except the big guy.
Except the big guy. So
Yeah.
he is able to define, and he is able to craft the laws of the land essentially in his image, which is why he was able to get a third term.
98%, if I'm not wrong.
And which is why even the institutions themselves, they have to act in accordance, because they are not guided by the rule of law, but rather by the rule by law.
But this is the thing about, I think, and it expands to most African countries, that and Uganda in somewhat same scenario and situation here. So they're engaged in this discussion of, retirement age, 70 retirement age, and it's become such a big political issue when people are saying, well, we can actually change the constitution. Part of the people in NRM say we can actually change the constitution so that, we allow this good president who's done very well, who has no blemish at all, to continue running a country. And there's an opposite side that says, hang on, guys, we've changed constitutions before to suit an interest of a person. We had, term limits, we changed them because we had a good president. The same arguments. We had a very good president who has done well, but there's no reason to change. And there we have it. Then he ran, and of course, when he runs, he wins. Then now we have to change the law to remove the age limit, all right? So that we can again accommodate this very good president who's done very well and was loved by all. At some point, I think these are the final remnants of, I think many other African countries, are sort of slowly getting to run away from this presidency that is personalized, that belongs to a person. But at some point, I think our friends in Uganda and Rwanda have to figure out and imagine a country beyond their current leadership, all right? That it's not just an important thing, it's not like an academic exercise, that at some point it remains one of the things that it's important for everyone in that country to figure out. Because supposing today, and God forbid, Paul Kagame is not, at the helm of Rwanda, what happens next? We know very little about anyone else, below him.
All the institutions.
All right? He's the one who guarantees this essentially the security.
He's a guarantor.
Yeah. And I think, and to speak just about both of them, I know they are very strong leaders and they have very good ideas about their countries and they're very well invested in their countries for years. It sort of just beholds that they should think beyond them. Well, that's a thought too far.
I would argue, I would go back to history, and because at the end of the day also, it's a people that vote for them. It's a people that vote for these referendums, you're a skeptic. Still, give me a minute,
Please.
What common, is there a common thread between these two countries?
Yes.
What?
Civil wars.
Yes. A lot of violence, coups, and whatnot. And what usually happens in such scenarios is that the person who emerges, the person who emerges to take them out of these scenario, out of these wars, becomes the embodiment of peace, becomes the embodiment of progress. So that's the space they own. And even as citizens themselves, you'll find quite a number of them. Because I've been to Rwanda, I've been to Uganda, and talked to a lot of these guys in political seasons. A lot of them, they tell you, you know what, I'm more comfortable with him because he guaranteed us peace. He moved us. If you were in a situation where X, Y, Z happened, and maybe we haven't had enough years between those civil wars and between the coups, so that the generation in between will not have to pay their dues or to seek allegiance or to support someone based on something that happened beyond their lifetime. But I think what you have is people cannot imagine the peace they are enjoying now in the absence of the current leaders they have, and that is also heavily perpetuated by the politics that those leaders play. They say, only I, the same thing you're saying, it guarantees the institutions, but also they are saying, also, I'm the one who is guaranteeing your peace.
Which is, for me, a failure of imagination on our part, I think, as a bloc, as East Africa bloc, a larger part as a continent, to say, well, we have had all these problems, and granted, we have someone who has come out of it and sort of managed to help a community and a country to get out of these very difficult circumstances. But we have to, for instance, Burundi, which we, the East African community, totally mishandled, in my view. You cannot have, in this day and age, where people go to an election and we sort of use the tools of democracy to defeat democracy, because this is what it is. All right,
it's not democracy.
It's not democracy. It is. Yoweri Kaguta himself in '86 is the one who gave that famous quote where he says that the problem of Africa is leaders of people who want to stay in office beyond, their welcome, and he's doing it right now, and we can argue competitively that the fact that he gets elected then is fine, that. Every 4 years, we can even, there are countries which can do elections every year, and these people will still be elected, all right? The question is not just the election, the excess of going to the ballot and voting. It's everything that happens before, during the elections, and afterwards. And we don't pay a huge attention to that as a community, as a continent. These things come from our side, of these democratic principles. You must hold regular elections. You must have institutions, have judiciary, make sure that your police are not killing too many Africans. They can kill some, but not too many, all right? You can have an imperial president, but, because we need contracts and whatever it is, but, when he signs one for his family, then it's a problem. Then we highlight it. The problem is we haven't defined our version of democracy in this continent to be attuned to our understanding of what it is to be Africans, what it is to live in the Africa of today. Case in point, Burundi. Burundians today are living in a society and a system whereby it looks like it's 1980. East Africa is passing this off. We're saying, well, it's fine. Your president wanted to stay another 5 years. Yeah. It's okay. We'll not make noise about it. We shouldn't be doing that. That's why we're a community.
What should we do?
I don't know, but I think I don't know what we should do, but I don't know what we should not be doing.
Two things. Number one, when you argue about term limits and defining democracy in our own terms,
right?
Yeah. Kagame and Museveni could argue that's what they're doing.
No, that's exactly what they're not doing. They are telling us that. And the biggest argument I've had Rwandans make online and to my face is that the Queen of England, a leader? Was she even elected? And that's a very with all due respect.
Remove the monarchy from this. Yeah,
even the premiership.
You can talk about the premiership. You can talk about the German system.
I'd love to talk about it.
Where you have no term limits.
But it's a parliamentary system. That's very different. We have a difference between presidential system and parliamentary system. Now, if they had a prime minister and they had MPs who go and vote and whatever it is, they can do it as much as they want.
What about the German system?
The German system is a parliamentary system.
But the chancellor has no...
No, the chancellor is a party. The party gets elected, and the party, Angela Merkel's party, yes, give her the leadership, and she's the one who takes over the leadership of the party. All right. Mm-hmm. When they get tired of her, they will pull her down and put someone else.
Yes.
All right, and that someone could continue. See, we have to respect, I think, the systems of democracy that we live in, and the ones that we've adopted.
And which is my argument, right. Yeah. My case, yeah, isn't. Which is essentially my worry, when you have institutions that are driven by individuals or institutions that are not strong enough
Right.
to withstand absence of a central force, yeah, that's a recipe for chaos. And which is why I would want to look at these cases individually and say, okay, even as we review, because at the end of the day, I might say, okay, Kagame is a problem. These guys are the problem. Museveni is a problem. Yeah. But at the end of the day, when you remove him from that office, yeah, when he leaves that office by attrition, yeah, once he leaves, is there enough for the country to survive in terms of institutions? Which is why institutions, there's an argument for institutions as the anchor of any democracy, not people, the institutions. And which is why I would rather say sometimes you find that you focus a lot and the arguments that happen online, no one talks about these things. You talk about the person because it's easier to attack Kagame. It's easier to attack Museveni, and then you are done for the day. But a lot more work is needed and should be driven towards understanding what kind of institutions are there, and if there's anything, what kind of changes need to happen at that institutional level to make sure that in the absence of this type of a leader, the country can still move on.
In research done by sociologists such as yourself, and political
I am
scientists.
a sociologist by the way.
Yeah, and political scientists has gone to show that you have a certain point where you'll reach a level of incompetence. All right, everyone reaches
Always.
a level of incompetence, and for political leadership, if you have to do it twice, if the Americans say what in 8 years, you get elected twice. After that, all your ideas have become sort of stale. All right, you don't have the energy, you don't have enough of the goodwill of the system and everyone around
You don't have
to
inspiration.
continue push it. All right, you know what I mean? For us, it's 5 years. All right, after 10 years, these people who
And it
work
makes
for
sense,
you,
and
all
I
right?
agree with that.
You
Yes.
get it? To the benefit of the people who are served by you, and I'm using this word quite in a
Liberally.
careless, as a president of the country, you can't be serving them for 15, 20, 30 years and still think that your ideas are as fresh and as brilliant and people as committed to your cause as they were in the first 5 years.
You should not
in the
be.
next
I
10 years.
agree.
All right?
Yeah.
So we shouldn't be pushing ourselves to finding these new things that we both know to be debunked and scientifically proven to not be true. Once upon a time, this country was in a place where Uganda was and Rwanda was in the Moi years, all right? Where we
Yes.
had a presidency that could,
Subvert.
could just continue, forever,
Yeah.
and it took so many, I think, people who had ideas, who didn't have ideas, all they had was just the passion of fighting for this country, who went to the streets and fought for it. It took church leaders, it took youth, it took people in
society.
universities, it took just about anyone and everyone in this country to say that, you know what,
We need a change.
we need a change. It's fine. We're not saying that you, as a president, are a bad president, but we're saying we need to change the ground rules. And this went on for many, many years. There are some who, in this country, who didn't agree with those calls. They were like, you know what, we're fine. I mean, as long as we're concerned, the businesses are going well. I've never been beaten by a police. Everything is fine. But some disagreed, and they pushed in for many, many years, which brought us to the constitution that we have in 2010. All right. And so this is a year, it's more than what the people brought and gave to themselves, as opposed to being guaranteed by a person. I think Ugandans and Rwandans, in my view, would have to get into those moments where they have to push themselves to get something so that they can guarantee it themselves and not have a situation whereby we say
It's guaranteed by the
by
individual.
a person.
Yes.
So
No, I like that. I like that.
Yeah, I would want us to get to that place.
Yes.
That would be very dangerous if we
It
get to
is.
that place.
Actually, we'll be where Uganda and Rwanda.
Yeah. So I want us to get there. Let's move on to Togo. All right. Now, is it Todo Biang, 92 years old, decided out of sufficiently philanthropic that this I'm done. I'm not contesting for this presidency again. and I would leave it for young Turks, who are in their 70s or 80s, to run the next show. They had this election where the opposition was contesting, the ruling party apparently won. Apparently because or allegedly won because it's a question on their Supreme Court, currently being, considered. But this is one of the things that the Electoral Commission said, and you can see it in the facts down here. That one of the Electoral Commission say that, voter turnout and actual votes count is not the only way to determine a winner of an election. There are many other ways. They did not expound, but the ruling party won, which has caused, some political unrest in the country. People are sleeping, outside, women, children. They are protesting for their lost or the theft of their victory, whatever it is. It's a classic story. I mean, this is something that Kenyans don't need to be introduced with. We've been into this path before, and these are sort of semantics that we use a lot in our politics. But here is Togo. Togo is a very rich country. Been oil deposits. It's an amazingly rich country. But they somehow have spent maybe the last 40 or so years under this one president that we talk about that has done nothing but enrich himself and his family and his kids. Things are happening in Togo, right? They hosted the World Cup, the African Cup of Nations, I think, a few years ago. Things are happening, but there's just so much potential in that country other than what they've been able to be given by this presidency and this ruling party that wants to stay on. You don't have to defend them, by the way. You don't have to defend them.
No, I'm not.
You can.
All I'm saying is
you can be progressive. It's fine. It's good. It will not die.
Am I not progressive?
I didn't say that. I say on this particular point.
I think we'll have to do, and it's something which I think it's about time. In terms, remember you said you can't see anyone following Kagame.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a thought which I had, and it's still nascent, something we're thinking about. But what we wanted to do, even locally, is to do a profile of leaders. Yeah.
Right.
Emerging leaders, various stages from MCA to because this is just to be able to track them from when they are starting off as an MCA, when they become an MP, when they run for Senate, when they run for governor. How have they moved through that process?
Right.
What are they doing? Do they have a track record? Because we have not been too good at that. We just suddenly realize that someone is running for governor, someone is running for Senate.
From where?
Where are they coming from? Yeah. Now, and I remember when you were thinking about this, I was wondering, is anyone doing the same for the continent? Are we looking and are we profiling and are we even highlighting what kind of leaders we have? Because at the end of the day, if you ask me, around the region, you find so many people, even here in Uganda, when they look at President Kenyatta, they're like, you know what, you guys have a cool president. You guys, that guy, I've seen him dancing, I've seen him singing, I've seen the SGR, I've seen 1, 2, 3, 4. Yesterday I was having a conversation with a Nigerian friend of mine, and what you're saying is in Nigeria, they are talking about examples of Kenya and how Kenya has these kinds of equipment at county level, yet Nigeria as a state doesn't have them as a country. Now, if we start profiling certain leaders who have come up across the region, what they are doing, how they are moving, I think as a whole, you start thinking the continent trying to borrow from each other, trying to understand, like, you know what, we can give and whatever. We need to fight for this because those guys have done it and they are moving in this manner. Yeah, because I don't think we have enough young aspirational figures to look up to as a continent, because you have few and far between. Right now, if you go to West Africa, you'll be hard pressed, to find these young kind of leaders,
shining examples.
And you need those beacons across the region so that now it just percolates from there. And that will be my point.
It's true. I mean, I think we haven't looked at the crisis of leadership in this continent.
We need to.
Yeah, where for some reason, I think when we, after independence, we had a bursting, sort of young, very, the PLOs, the Lumumbas, you can put Tomboya in there, for ourselves.
Pinto.
You can put, yes, yeah. This across the continent, there was just this
Nkrumah.
There was just some
Patrice
talent.
Lumumba.
Patrice. There was some talent that was coming out. That you could see that.
And funny thing is, we all know them.
Of course, we know them. We know them, and it was something that it happened in almost each and
Exactly. And you could talk about 1, 2, 3, 4 from here.
So, question is, part of what the colonialists and the people who came, the superpowers did after that was some of these guys were killed. A number of them. In gruesome deaths, so that they could promote these other leaders that came up after them. Who are
manipulated into
and all those rights.
Yes.
Then they ran this ship of serious incompetence and stealing and emptying the coffers.
They actually
of the Republic.
perpetuated the raid of the continent.
Yeah.
Scramble.
After them, we have this very lethargic leadership that showed up. All right, that is not. It's uninspiring at all. They have no vision beyond themselves, and they don't inspire anything beyond their country.
Yeah.
So how did we get here?
I'll say this: our shining lights were killed.
Thank you.
Yeah. Our shining lights, most of them died, as you've correctly mentioned.
New people get born, all the time.
They do. But what I'm saying is, thank you. What I'm saying is this, when our shining lights died, and they replaced, or rather were replaced, by. Sorry, I need a sip. By this crop of Mobutu Sese Seko, you have Dennis Osongweso. You have the Biang. Yeah.
They killed my hero, Sankara.
When this happened, you had guys, and which for me is, I think none of these guys could inspire anything. Yeah. Visions were short term. Yeah. They could not aspire. They could not see what their predecessors, the freedom fighters, did. And as such, they slowly killed the country. But what I'm saying now is that even as a continent, we are seeing a lot of, when you check online, you'll see a lot of comments around people saying, hey, I've heard about President Uhuru Kenyatta. I've heard about my money in South Africa. I've heard about, now, in Kenya, we are discussing a young lady who was an opposition leader in Rwanda. Now, those are the kinds of people who will help create this new narrative, because now we're in a situation where we can start comparing, where we can start identifying the shining lights in each country. And I'm saying we need to do it more. We need to profile it more. When you see someone who is emerging, for instance, we have a young governor at 33 years old.
We had this discussion the other time. I'm not sure you want to open it up.
No, I'm not opening it up. I'm just saying we have a young governor who was a senator at 27, 28. But that is someone worth profiling in terms of saying, okay, what is he doing? What is his personality? Why are people giving him such responsibility at such a young age? It's something that it's a question we need to ask, which I don't think we ask enough of. And the same need to happen on the continent. We have to ask certain questions, and we have to look at these kinds of inspirations. And I insist, they must be political.
They must be political.
They should be.
That's a good thought to end this discussion today. All right? Right, that does it for us for Afro Political here at Jay's Bar.